Hi guys, this is Mr. Chauke. I'm a professional teacher for accounting, business studies, EMS, as well as research. If you're watching this, you are definitely at the right place. Please make sure that you hit the subscribe button down there, and also make sure that you tell your friends to subscribe to this channel. While you're also telling them, remind them to tell their friends, to tell friends of their friends to like this video, to comment, and to also share this lesson with their loved ones. With that out of the way, let's get into the lesson of the day. In this morning's lesson, we're going to be learning about the year-end adjustment. We'll specifically be focusing on what we call a prepaid expense. And remember, we are now doing the term 3 work. I'm doing this so that I can prepare you guys for when we open, so that it becomes easy for us to flow. So please make sure that you watch this video, you ask questions where necessary, that you also leave your comments in terms of how you felt about this lesson on the comment section of this video. Let's get into the lesson. Now, the most important thing that we need to do before we do anything is to always understand the concepts that we are dealing with. Now, in this activity, we are dealing with prepaid expenses. We know that if we are saying something it is prepaid, it means that it was paid before it occurred. For example, in March, I pay for water and electricity for April. It means that I've paid before I use that water and electricity. So hence it is paid in advance. And to me, as a customer, the municipality will owe me that money until I utilize their water and electricity. So whenever I've paid something in advance, it becomes prepaid. In my when I do the journal entries, I'm going to make sure that whenever I adjust, I'm going to make sure that I credit that particular expense and debit prepaid expense, because to me as a business person it is an asset. So in other words, we are saying that a prepaid expense, it is an expense that was paid before it occurs, and whenever that occurs, it means that those people whom you have paid for that particular expense, they are owing you money. Okay. Now, in accounting, there's a principle that we called matching. It says that expenses of this year should be matched with the incomes of this year. So, in other words, if something, if an expense overlaps for the following year, we need to bring it down and make sure that it corresponds with the current financial year. Okay. Now here they're telling us that only expenses for this current year must be taken into account. In other words, if we are within a particular year, we must make sure that we are only dealing with expenses and incomes of that particular year. Okay. Now here they're saying that all expenses paid during the current financial year that concerns the following year cannot be reflected in the current financial statements. Like they're saying here that if we've paid for an expense that is supposed to happen next year, but we paid for it in this current financial year, it's not supposed to appear in our current financial statements. That's why when we do your income statement, you'll realize that all prepaid expenses are going to be deducted, and then would have also to make some journal entries in our notes to the balance sheet and also the balance sheet. You would see that we will normally what we'll do, we'll make sure that we debit our prepaid expense and we will credit the name of that particular expense. Okay, so now here they've given us an example, and I think this will help us as we continue with our lesson. It will make our work actually to be much more easy. Here they're saying that if the rent to be paid is 3,000 for only the amount of 12 months must be shown. So if, for example, we are renting a place for 12 months, we are only supposed to record the rent that we're going to pay for that particular 12 months. Anything that exceeds that 12 months is supposed to be deducted. And they gave us an example here. Remember, they said if we are paying rent for 3,000, it means that we are expecting that in that particular period of 12 months, we are supposed to only pay 3,000 per month. So the total rent paid is supposed to be 36,000 according to this example. In other words, our expected rent to be paid, it's supposed to be 36,000. So anything that exceeds this, it means that that particular rent has been paid in advance. And here they're saying that if the total amount paid is 39,000, it means that 3,000 has already been paid for the next financial year. Why are they saying that? If you take this 39,000 and then you say minus 36,000, it will give you an extra 3,000. It means that this 3,000 was prepaid. It was paid in advance, and which is what they've done here. So these are some of the examples that you will deal with with regards to your prepaid expenses. Now, what we will do in our financial statements, when you go to our income statement, we are going to subtract this 3,000 to bring our rent expense to 36,000, because the income statement is interested in the expenses that have occurred. Okay, so in other words, our income statement would have to show that our rent expense is 36,000, and then in our notes to the balance sheet as well as the balance sheet would have prepaid expense as 3,000, because this 3,000 was paid in advance, and it will be recorded under trade and other receivables in the balance sheet and an item called prepaid expense. Why? Because it was paid before time. Now here they're saying that the amount has already been paid for the next year, therefore it becomes an asset to the business, which is what I said. Once you've paid something in advance, it means that those people owe you money for that particular service that you've paid, because at the present moment it has not yet been rendered to you. So therefore it is an expense to those, it is a liability to those people, but an asset to you as a customer. Why? Because you have a legal claim over those people. You can demand that money anytime, and this is why it brings us to talking about that matching principle. Okay, remember I said in terms of matching principle or accrual, it talks about us making sure that expenses are aligned with the current financial year. And prepaid expense, remember, like I said, it is an asset to the business, because those people are owing you money for the expense that you have paid for in advance. Now let's look at an example so that we can know how to record this. But because here they want us to firstly show the effects in the general ledger as well as the general journal, I will start by firstly showing this in the general journal so that it becomes easy for us to do this in the general ledger. Okay, now here the information says that show the following transactions in the general ledger and general journal. Show how it will affect it will appear in the financial statement. Now the extract shows that the extract from trial balance shows that the total rent that we've the total insurance that we've paid is 5,200. Now here they're saying insurance of 560 was paid for March 2009, and if you remember here, our year tells us that we are ending the year on 28 February, but when you check this, 560 was paid in advance for March, so it means it's a prepaid expense. So therefore, what must we do to show the effects of this transaction? They will show us here. They've given us the ledger account. This is the total that we have paid, the total money that we've paid for insurance. But here we are interested in what is going to be taken to the profit and loss statement. Remember, we must reduce this so that we can only take the insurance expense for only for the current financial year. So here they credited insurance by prepaid expense so that the difference can be taken to the profit and loss account. Okay, now if you look at this, remember we said when we look at insurance, it is an expense to us as a business. It is a part of the nominal section if you look at the items that are listed there. Okay, now the reason why we are crediting insurance by prepaid expense is because insurance has got to be reduced, and we know that our expenses increase on the debit side and they decrease on the credit side. So whenever an item is paid in advance, the name of that particular account that we are talking about, in this case it is insurance, it is credited because it must be reduced because it was paid in advance, and the account that becomes debited is the account called prepaid expense because it is an asset to the business and it belongs to the balance sheet section as they have said here. Now if you look at this, what they did, they showed us also the effect of double entry. If you check, insurance has been credited by 560 and then prepaid expense has been also has been debited by 560, and then the name of the account is insurance. So you can see that double entry has been applied. Okay, now in the general journal we would say debit prepaid expense and credit insurance, so which is what they've done here, and this is the insurance that was paid for March 2009. It's a narration here. So they gave us that example. Now here they explain to you that the insurance account must decrease by 560, and it is therefore subtracted, and whenever we subtract an expense, we enter that in the opposite side. So let's try and do a different let's see how this will affect the balance sheet. So you see, under prepaid expenses we have that 560, so which is what I was saying to you in terms of showing how it will appear in the financial statements. So let's look at the next activity, which is what I'm interested in, and let's see if we have a solution. We don't have a solution here. So here they're saying that show the following transactions in the general ledger and the general journal. It is the same transaction as the one that we did, just that this one here is a bit different. So now if you look at this, number one, we need to be able to establish our financial period. Here they're saying that this is the extract from the pre-adjustment trial balance on 30 June 2002. So now if our year ends on 30 June 2002, we need to establish the beginning of the year, which means that our year, according to this, our year started on 1 July 2021, then it ended on 30 June 2022. This information is very important to us. It's very important for us to be able to understand the financial period, especially when we deal with adjustments. So now here they're saying that if you look at this, they are telling us that this was the adjustment says that insurance includes an amount of 350 paid in respect of July and August. So it means that this 350 was paid in advance for 2 months, because we were supposed to end in June. So you can see that this is a prepaid expense, because we were only supposed to pay up until June, but we've paid up until August. So we've paid by 2 months extra. So now what do we need to do? Remember, like I said, my advice to learners is normally to say to them that start by firstly recording in the general journal, and it's going to help you to know exactly how are you supposed to record this. So remember, I said in terms of this, when we record in the general journal, we need to think about these. So remember, like I said, prepaid expense to you is an asset, right? So we'd say account debited would be, you can just say, I'll just write debit prepaid expense just to remind you. So we debit prepaid expense, and remember, double entry says you must identify account debited and account credited. So we debit prepaid expense, and therefore we need to credit insurance, because that is an expense that needs to be reduced, and we know that insurance as an expense, it is reduced on the credit side. And if you check here, they said that that amount for July on August is 350. So we will debit prepaid expense by 350, and then we also credit insurance by 350. So now once we've done this journal entry, it helps us to know automatically how are we supposed to do this in the general journal, as they've said here. Now if you remember here, at the end of the month, which is 30 June, we would say here we can say June 2002. Let me see if this will fit. So it did fit. So what, maybe I need to try and reduce this. So here's the date. Remember, it's June 2002, and then the day here is the 30th. So we'll just write the 30, and then we'll write total paid, or we can just say total payment. Remember, you are posting total payment. And then where did we see this? We saw this in the cash payment journal. So we'll just write a cash payment journal here, right? Remember, the payments are shown in the cash payment journal. This total payment, you are seeing them in the cash payment journal. So now what is the total for insurance that was paid according to this? They said it's 5,600, so we'd have that 5,600 here. Now here we have entered the information. When you earn your marks, you earn your 1 mark for writing total payment and 1 mark also for writing the amount. So this is the easiest you can get. Okay, so please make sure that you capitalize when it comes to such transactions. Okay, let me also maybe try to make this big so that you can see it clearly. Okay, now we need to think about this. Remember we said that we are going to credit insurance by 350, so therefore we must also credit it. So I'll bring the same information here. Let me see if I can copy this. So remember, now I'll go to my information. If you remember, if you look at this, those details are not that important. So maybe what I can do, I'll just remove them for now for the sake of you understanding. So I'll just remove these details here just to avoid confusing you. So now remember here, for us to credit insurance, we must decrease it by the opposite account that it goes in hand with to apply double entry, which is that account. According to here, it is a prepaid expense. So we say prepaid expense. Now remember, prepaid expense to us as a business, it's a liability. To us as a business, prepaid expense is an asset because we've paid in advance. So now what we need to do is to check how will the prepaid expense account be affected. Okay, so the amount that is being prepaid according to here is 350. So that 350 will come on the credit side. Remember, your expense is increased this side. This is where it increases. Okay, maybe let me make this big so that you can remember. This is where your expense increases on the debit side. Okay, and then it is decreased here on the credit side. Very important for you to always try to remember this. So now if you look at these two sides are supposed to be equal, but when you look at this, they are not equal. So what can we do to fix this? We'll just write the total here, 5,600 for that total here, and also 5,600 for that total here. But we know that our expense has been overpaid, so we must reduce it. So in other words, what is the amount that will appear in our income statement? In our income statement, which is will be represented by profit and loss here. Profit and loss. Remember, when we do the closing transfers, the profit and loss becomes debited and insurance become credited. Hence, we are crediting it here. Unfortunately, they didn't give us the account for profit and loss, but that's how you normally do it. So for profit and loss, we'll transfer the amount that we are going to get after deducting that 350. So if we say 5.6 minus 350, it is going to give us 5,250. So in our profit and loss statement, we are expecting to get 5,250 for insurance. Okay, so let's see now in terms of profit and loss. Remember, profit and loss, it is an asset. Insurance has been credited, so therefore profit and loss must be debited. So here we'd have the same thing here. I'll just copy this. Remember here the date is the 30th, and because this is a prepaid expense, we can't remember prepaid expense as an asset. It is being debited because it increases on the debit side because it is an asset, right? And it will decrease on the credit side, but remember there's no transaction for the decrease. So Please remember that. So now prepaid expense has been here insurance was credited by prepaid expense, so prepaid expense must be debited by insurance. Remember, contra account, so we'd have your insurance here. Okay, so we'd have our insurance, and then the amount will be for that prepaid expense. It's the amount that we have is 350, so that 350 will come here, that 350. So let's see if they give us space for us to record in there. We don't have, this example doesn't have the space for us to record in the balance sheet, but in the balance sheet under prepaid expense, this amount will fall under trade and other receivables note under prepaid expense. Okay, maybe let me try and show you the solution so that you can see what I'm talking about. I'm not sure if the solution was given here. Okay, let me check at the bottom. You see, unfortunately we don't have the information about that part of the balance sheet. They didn't give us the space, so they also didn't record it for that part on the balance sheet. Remember to give a narration that it is insurance prepaid. Okay, so it means that we've done it correctly. So guys, this is how you deal with prepaid insurance. So what I would do for each and every final account adjustment, I will make a lesson for each, just so that you guys can easily relate to this when we come back to school. Thank you so much guys for watching. Remember to subscribe to this YouTube channel, to make sure that you also tell your friends to subscribe to this channel. Make sure that you also leave your comments on the comment section to tell us how was the lesson for you. Tell us if it has helped you to improve your understanding of accounting. If there's any area where you feel we need to improve, kindly please do so by using the details that are available to get in touch with us. Thank you so much for watching. May God richly bless you. Shalom.